In this lesson, we are going to survey the advantages of using and deploying open source software. We'll begin by talking about how collaborative development leads to a better and more secure product, and then we will discuss the specific advantages of various stakeholders of using open source software. When a project is developed collaboratively by a diverse group of developers, maybe in different organizations or companies and geographic locations, one just has many more ideas to draw on, and one can build better software because not everybody is always trying to solve the same problems. They can build on the work of others. Furthermore, just having more eyeballs viewing the code and more groups testing it leads to a better and stronger and more secure product when it's actually deployed. It's often very difficult for competitors to really get used to the idea of sharing and seeing that the benefits can be greater than the costs in using the open software model. However, it enables competitors to compete on parts that users actually see rather than the internal plumbing, which can be shared between different competing organizations. Once again, it leads to a stronger product and one which can be developed more quickly. If you have coding standards and style standards, the code will tend to be cleaner and more consistent. This forces many developers to write cleaner code because it's embarrassing to have people look at ugly and sloppy code, and it's also difficult for people to comprehend the code and make improvements to it. This helps find security problems before products are actually deployed in the field. There's more input in the original design. You get rid of the concept of security through obscurity. Having open source enables a lot of people to look for the security flaws and quickly publish fixes to them, so you don't have to just trust people. There are many people that use and deploy open source software, and we'll just discuss here users, businesses, educational institutions, and developers. Now, these are overlapping categories, obviously. Businesses use the code, as does educational institutions, for example, and developers will work for businesses or educational institutions also. Users gain a lot in terms of flexibility. They can mix and match software that comes from different projects and different sources. It's obviously cheaper in most cases than buying or leasing software, and you don't get locked into specific vendors. You can keep choice going forever, and the ability to see what's really going on so that you don't have to just trust somebody who developed your product is very useful, especially if you have the knowledge to really understand the code. And in general, it's just more fun having more choices. Businesses can lower the total cost of development since they can build on the work of others who don't work for their specific company. This also speeds up the time of development and the time of release of a product to market. Having a lot of community feedback, criticism, suggestions also lets you gain resources beyond actual employees. If you see things in upstream products, in other words, products that your product requires, if you see things which require change or improvement or fixes, you can work on that product as well, or at least feed your suggestions and code changes to the upstream people so that you don't have to do all kinds of workarounds in your product to deal with what you perceive to be weaknesses in the upstream product. As far as marketing goes, customers know what they're getting. There's no secrets, so they can have confidence in the quality. There will be a large ecosystem of related products, not just yours, so people can see how it all fits in. And in many cases, there's a very modular construction where different pieces can be plugged in together, both from within your suite of products as well as in other organizations or companies' products. If a large community adopts a product, then customers will have confidence the product is here to stay. It's not going to be abandoned no matter what happens, or that development will stop. For educational institutions, there are many advantages, and at first let's just talk about elementary education from kindergarten through high school. There's a lot of resources available for teaching as well as the software itself at little or no cost in many different areas, including operating systems, applications, administration, programming, etc. And students are not just trained in one company's products, which are popular now but may not be popular in the future. Software itself is very cheap or free, and in many cases you can use much older hardware than you can if you're using proprietary vendor products. Students will learn skills they need in the workforce, and just in general they will have more fun due to the flexibility, and they will unleash their creativity. At the university level, students can get real practical work on the internals of operating systems, applications, libraries, system administration. For instance, most universities today use Linux to study operating systems rather than some of the other operating systems that are associated with particular companies. They will gain workforce skills that are needed when they graduate, and just generally develop good habits. Having to work with an open community leads to good habits in terms of clean code and in being able to handle criticism and make criticism without being sensitive, and just generally work well and play with others. And finally, since prospective employers can actually see the work you did instead of just a general description of it, they can actually see your code and evaluate this, and in many cases this really helps get jobs. That's also true, by the way, for developers. Having their code be public means that a prospective employer can really evaluate them in a way they could not do if it was not open source. You don't have to reinvent everything. You can build on the work of others or stand on their shoulders. Good decisions can be made early in product design by having more input. Likewise, having more people look at the code, as we've said before, builds a better product and finds bugs more quickly. And just generally having suggestions from a larger group is rather helpful. So these are some of the advantages of using open source software. We will discuss many of them in more detail as we go.